Eastern Front. So the Eastern Front is central for all those reasons. Why else? Oh, God, maybe the most important reason should not have been the last thing on my mind, but it is better understanding the Holocaust. People have a very warped understanding of the Holocaust throughout the world. Increasingly, unfortunately, most recent data shows a lot of Holocaust denial, Holocaust misunderstandings, lack of comprehension, lack of empathy. And I think maybe one of the ways we can revise that is better understanding the Holocaust by shifting its attention to the East. The Holocaust was bound up in the Eastern Front, the conflict of the Eastern Front in World War II. And I think most people, even most experts in the Holocaust in our secondary education system who teach it, maybe fail to understand that or fail to teach that. Both sides in quotation marks. That conversation should never become both sides in World War II. It really can't get to that, or we've made a mistake. Because that's one, if we're going to put left-right political dichotomy onto this, a more left-leaning American is going to be drawn towards this critique of the good war myth, understandably so. It kind of tempers down that over-enthusiastic American nationalism. It forces us to look at our own mistakes and errors and question them in World War II. From a right-wing perspective, though, there's a both sidesism. If you've ever heard of the horseshoe theory, where two different sides on the political spectrum can sometimes meet, there's a both sidesism that goes in the opposite direction, which is maybe the Soviets were just as bad as the fascists. Maybe the fascists weren't as bad as we made them out to be. If you watch Tucker Carlson on recent podcasts, some of the guests he's had on, that Churchill was the actual bad guy, and definitely Joseph Stalin. Maybe the fascists deserve a little bit of a break. Maybe some of Hitler's ambitions were totally justifiable. And you get to a place where some Americans on the political right are trying to both sides it by saying, the Soviets were just as bad as the Nazis. Maybe we were wrong to align with the Soviets to defeat fascism. Maybe we should have aligned with fascism to defeat communism. That's going in a different direction of both sidesism, but you can kind of see where the two sides of the horseshoe meet, right?
Right.
Whether you're arguing America was just as bad as Germany or Soviet Union was just as bad as Germany, either way, I think we're misunderstanding the ideological evils here in this conflict.
I want to be respectful of your time. Are you good for 10 more minutes?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. So perfect. Thank you. You had mentioned, right? So the controversy with U.S. killing civilians and the idea that Nazis got some of their ideas from the American South. Did you ever, as a professor, I'd imagine you're teaching adults, people can challenge what you say, but you're not really going to get into trouble with it. When you taught high school, did you ever teach anything like this? But I was going to ask, you brought up Tucker Carlson and a lot of criticism from him on Israel lately. And also, while there's a lot of, at least in my view, a lot of valid criticism of Israel and their actions with Gaza the last little bit, also a lot of increase with anti-Semitism overall and a lot of Holocaust denial. What do you think, with your knowledge of World War II, what do you think are the best arguments if you had to convince or try to convince a Holocaust denier why it was real? What would be your main points to try to bring up to them?
Yeah, that's really hard. Speaking of an Overton window shifting, Holocaust denial, 20% of 18 to 29-year-olds in our most recent polling data believe that the Holocaust was a myth. That's American 18 to 29-year-olds.
Say 20%?
20%, 1 out of 5, yeah.
Oh, wow.
7% of Americans writ large, that's all age groups combined, just 7. 7's too high, in my view. But what's interesting is when you scale that down by age, the oldest Americans, it's negligible, it's 0%. And the younger you get, the more likely Americans are to agree with the statement that the Holocaust is a myth. So it's a problem, and it's a problem that is particularly afflicting young people. Usually, as a historian, political scientist, former debate coach who deals with the information environment, one of the things you'll probably agree with me that we see is that there's a correlation between misinformation and age, old age in particular. So the older you are, the more difficult time you have ascertaining what sources are reliable on the internet. And there's a lot of sociological explanations for that. Young people grow up with this, having to learn this skill. Old people don't. And this, of course, is a generalization. And we can see a lot of it in the data. But on this particular issue, man, on Holocaust denial, it flips. Misinformation does not track with old age. It correlates with young age. If if you 16 of you in this room don't help me solve this problem, who else in the world is going to help me solve this crisis of growing Holocaust denial and misinformation? How to do it though, man, that's hard. Um, yeah, primary sources are probably a really good way to go. Primary sources, and we have some amazing Holocaust archival research that's been done in the last 70 years, and that's been well funded. Holocaust research has been a very well funded enterprise within the historiography, within the field of historical research. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, USHMM, the God, now I'm Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial. You said, you brought up Israel. Israelis have really good Holocaust museum system as well. So through those institutions, we have then online archives with all kinds of evidence, primary sources, including video sources. I mean, by the thousands, overwhelming numbers of video resources that you can show students of people who can testify of their experiences in the Holocaust. You know, what is it? Ethos, pathos. You can't always use your authority as an educator to dispel Holocaust denial, unfortunately. Like, I try to do that. I try to say, look, you guys, I've spent years of my adult life in the archives looking at resources. Every single day I'm in the German archives, I come across a document that references the killing of the Jews that most Holocaust historians don't even know about, because I'm not looking at a particular archive that's about Holocaust killers. It just so happens some German propagandist I'm studying is writing to a diplomat in Hungary about a difference he has with another German politician that refers to something that happened to Jews. And here they are openly admitting that they are aware of the mass murder of hundreds of thousands of Jews from Budapest or something. So, like, it's not even just in the explicit Holocaust documents, even non-Holocaust related documents reference the Holocaust. It's just all over the archival record. The kind of conspiracy that would be required to create all those documents is beyond what is humanly possible. But that's using authority, right? Those, I can't, I can tell my students from my authority, I promise you, I've seen these documents. I don't think that's as powerful as showing them a video of an elderly woman remembering her future husband liberate her from a camp, right? That kind of emotional power that they can get from a direct testimony, that you can get through some of these institutions, is really valuable.
There's a point with Holocaust now where it's like there's so many primary sources. It's like the idea that it was this conspiracy that people fabricated. It just hits a point where that's far harder to believe than it is that it
Yeah.
actually happened. But also, once someone dives down a rabbit hole deep enough, it's not always like a logical thing, right? When it becomes very emotional, it's not always
No, you're
easy
right.
to get someone out of it.
You're right. It's a very good point. A lot of conspiracism, and conspiracism is on the rise for a lot of reasons. A lot of that is sociologically undergirded by emotional needs than it is by rational fears, for sure. And that's hard for us to address as teachers, because although we're trained in social emotional education, right? We're supposed to look out for students that are hungry or whatever, and everything downstream of that. It's at the end of the day, our primary responsibility is in that world of rationality. And yeah, there's only so
Right.
much we can do.
There's a part of me that wants to tell people, like, look at what the historians are saying on it. Look at what the history education scholars and the social scientists are
Appeal
saying
to
on it. But
authority. Mhm.
yeah, and yeah, exact. But it's like, I mean, it's kind of self-serving, like where people are like, well, if you're in that category, then you're just
Yes.
saying why I should listen to you. But also,
Yeah,
I mean, these
yeah,
are people that study this stuff
yeah.
for decades, and I tend to hope that their expertise would be valued. But